Okay. There's always a bit of technical pause at the beginning. It's so hard to get this Instagram live thing going with the live thing, but we make it work. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and cinemaphiles everywhere, welcome back. Welcome back to Assigned Seating. It's been a little while since we've done one, and it's been a long time.
It's been a while.
A long time since we've done a live one, so we're totally live. We don't have a net today, Vera. It's just you and I.
Oh my God.
Just you and I.
Flying without a net.
I know. We aren't talking about Greece, sadly. But, I mentioned this movie and I was like, surely, come on, let's do it. And this movie, it's just synchronicity. What an amazing way to welcome everyone to Pride Month.
I thought that too as I was jotting down my thoughts. I thought, this is the quintessential Grande Dame movie, and who else loves a Grande Dame besides
the gays and the she's? We love it. We love it. So, we are diving back into the past today. I think this is probably the oldest movie we've done on this podcast so far.
Yes, it is.
But I love classic cinema, so this is like a teaser. Let's see if anyone else likes it. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to discuss 1962's cult classic, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Now, I first saw this one. I was a film studies major at university, and I first was exposed to this probably when I was 19. So yeah, that's when I first watched Baby Jane. We were doing classic Hollywood cinema, and this was part of it. At the end of it, we'd done all the big ends, all the big classics, and then our professor just had this really quirky taste, and he's like, "Well, this is what happens after classic Hollywood. This is how classic Hollywood bled into the '60s," and it has held a place in my heart ever since then. I think, that's all I'm going to say to start with. But Vera, you surprised me.
Well,
when I said, "Oh my God, let's watch this," what did you say to me?
I haven't seen it. I grew up on classic cinema. My father was a cinephile, and he would watch all the old movies, and this one was on the TV at least once a year my entire childhood, and I would walk in and say, "Looks scary," and walk right out.
Too scary for me. She's out.
I'm out.
But that's awesome.
It's so funny when I went to watch it. It's probably the least scary movie I've ever watched in my entire life.
And you don't do scary movies, though. That's the important thing.
I did some Halloween movies when I was younger. I watched a couple of zombie flicks when I was dating. If the guy took you to a scary movie, it was an excuse to grab his arm.
Yes, of course. I'm frightened, don't. I'm terrified. That's amazing. But this is a completely different kind of scary movie, and I think this is a really good movie that we can talk about context with, because a lot of the time on our sister show, Uncensored Horror, we talk about people, especially the younger generation today, not being interested in watching movies made prior to the 80s at the latest. They don't know, they don't think that it has anything to offer, that all of this kind of stuff is history and that's it. But it is so important to understand how we got to where we are today by watching the cinema, by watching the cinema.
The Hitchcock,
he's saying the words that I love.
Yeah.
Yes.
These were more psychological thrillers.
Exactly, a
You know,
psychological
if
thriller.
you didn't see the blood and gore, which is really a lot of my main objection to
Yeah.
horror films nowadays, but you were on edge.
And I think that's the most important. We talk about that a lot too on Uncensored Horror. Sometimes it isn't about the blood and gore. If you can get an audience on the edge of their seat with tension, then I think
Right.
that opens the gateway to fear, and makes anticipation a thing as opposed to
Mhm.
we go away. A jump scare, we go away. Blood, gore, gore, gore. But this is a big thing about today is going to be context, because we have to understand this movie via a lens of today's cinema, and it's quite hard to understand because these two women are stars on another level to the celebrities of today. Even the release of this movie, movies used to be events. Going to the cinema was an event. You couldn't turn on your phone and watch a movie. You had to
Right.
wait, watch the previews at the movies, all that kind of stuff, and then go to the cinema. It was ritual. It's like church for the artists. Yeah,
Oh
you go,
yeah.
and you get the good word, and you watch it happen. So it contextually is very different to the way they make films today, but it goes without saying that this movie would not exist without these two wonderful, wonderful women, Joan Crawford,
Yeah.
Bette Davis. Now,
All right.
to think about how we compare the two in our modern zeitgeisty world, Joan Crawford is a movie star. Was a movie star, hot
Mhm.
sweetheart. So think Reese Witherspoon, think Meg
Think
Ryan back
Jane
in the day.
Fonda.
Yeah,
Think
but then you
Cher.
have
Yeah.
Bette Davis or Bette Davis, however you would like to, name her. Betty was an actor's actor. She was the Meryl Streep on steroids of her time, and well before her time with her attitudes to feminism and women in the workplace, and trying to get what she deserved and be respected for her craft. And it was the meeting of two very, very different styles of acting as well.
Mhm.
Obviously, Joan had grown up in the studio system and was used to, the melodrama of classic Hollywood cinema, which, we all love. There's always a good time for a swoon and a faint.
Right.
A swoon and a faint is the way we like to do it. But then you had someone like Bette Davis, who wasn't afraid to be ugly, to be loud,
No,
to be
she was a
brash, to be
scrapper. Yeah.
seen. And she just chews up the scenery in this movie and spits it
Well, they
out.
both do their share of chewing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was a lot more respectful and respective of Joan's role this time around, because it's so easy to get distracted by Betty because she's doing so
She
much,
is
and
big. She's huge.
she
Yes.
is big, 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 big. But we should start at the beginning, right? We should go all the way back.
Yes.
We always usually say, if you haven't seen the movie we're talking about,
So, skip this part.
you've got a lot of time. It's been out for a few years. We're
exactly 62.
yeah, we're broaching some big numbers here. So just maybe just join in.
Though, I did think the movie was from the 40s.
Yeah, but I think that's part of it as well. I think that the way it's shot, and some of it is so gorgeous and so dramatic, and just I love this movie.
1962, black and white was a choice.
Hi, Dave. Yeah, it was a choice, but I think for the story of these two children, children that grew up with as part of the child star era in the 40s. So, yeah, it's
sibling-like partners.
Sibling-like partners. We would know a lot about that. So even the way that it opens is so different to any really movies of its time. We get the 1917 title card and the screaming child.
Yep.
Screaming, "Do you want to see that again, little girl?" It's like, oh my god, that's kind of terrifying, really, isn't it? To witness, but it segues into the world of vaudeville, which is something again that that today's audience wouldn't understand. So it's like watching America's Got Talent in theaters. There we go. I guess that's
more like watching a junior high talent show.
yeah, but it's a
America's Got Talent's much slicker.
Yeah, it's a variety of acts, so singers, dancers, acrobats, mimes, all that kind of thing, and they would that was entertainment back in the day because no TVs, no nothing like that. You would go see some vaudeville acts, and that's how people made their money. Look at Judy Garland; that's where Judy Garland started out. All of those classic Hollywood starlets have some vaudeville.
All those vaudeville theaters became movie houses.
Yeah,
as vaudeville died.
It's a very interesting commentary on the way that entertainment changes too, because we are introduced to baby Jane Hudson, the archetypal child star with a capital C. Think Shirley Temple, on steroids or acid, maybe, and she is, an all singing, all dancing money machine for her parents. And for her family, she is the main breadwinner of the family. Her father obviously manages baby Jane and their quote unquote act across the country, and
steals her thunder sometimes.
Tries to steal her thunder. It's very much like that. Dance mom kind of stage parent thing. It's like
shades of funny boo boo.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, we will deal with that, but that's that's how it is. It's very gypsy, this story with one sibling that's the star and the other that's in the background as a child. And the what that does psychologically to you as a child. It was we see that the shining, happy, beautiful, angelic written letter to daddy, baby Jane singing on stage with her beautiful dolls as likenesses, so she can be spread out into the universe. But then we also see baby Jane off stage.
Yep.
And that's a brat. That's a brat.
That's a screaming, tantrum-ridden brat.
that is a brat. And look, again, it's all about all those people waiting at the stage door to see her and buying into it. And poor Blanche. We've got to say poor Blanche. I think this sets up poor Blanche to start with, right? We're on Blanche's side.
Blanche is the victim.
Poor Blanche. Blanche gets blamed for not wanting ice cream. Even that little girl.
I don't think she doesn't want ice cream.
No, she said she doesn't need it. That's right. She goes, I don't need one.
She's afraid to state her needs because her sister's so prominent.
She says, I don't need one. And then her father snaps at her and she runs away because, we've made Jane look awkward. We can't have that. And you can tell Mum and Blanche are very much the kindred spirits, the behind the scenes, the downtroddens, as opposed to Jane and her father.
A little Dickensian in there.
and yet it's so bleak, isn't it? When she's like, just when you're older, remember to treat Jane better than she treated you.
Right.
Oh, I'll remember. It's like. No
guilt here.
Nothing. No foreshadowing here at all. With that dark-eyed child staring into the camera. It's just like, okay, cool. And then we get something about, I don't know. I get a little bit, gives me a little nostalgia bubbles when we get opening titles.
Yeah.
It's not a thing that's done anymore.
And opening credits.
Yeah, credit. Like we get to see everyone. Everyone's credited. So at the end of the movie, you could just leave. At the end of the movie, you could just go home. But the titles very much, tell a story as well. We get the post childhood scene where it's all very mysterious. It is very, cloak and dagger, almost, detective-esque movie,
Right.
like crime movie of the time, where we see hands and feet and like, the car pulling up to the gates of a house as a
The
woman
back of
gets
a
out.
woman
Yes, the
going through
back
the
of a woman
gate.
getting out of the car to
The
unlock the
car.
gates,
Yeah.
and then another woman revving that car up and driving
And
into
then
the gates
crash.
as there is a screaming crash of
Screeching,
brakes and
brakes,
screams,
and
breaking
metal.
glass, all the good stuff
Right.
that symbols our descent into the madness that is going to be whatever happened to Baby Jane. And it is a very effective beginning. Now, the sisters are talked about. Well, I find this really interesting. We don't see them straight away. We hear about them from the neighbors to start
Right.
with, and it's like the urban legend that just happens to live next door.
Right.
It's so cool. It's like, okay, but I don't know. It must be a very strange time, especially back then in Hollywood, to live somewhere and have movie stars next door
Right.
from days gone by that I could watch you on the TV, and then, oh, you're also here. That's
Right.
interesting. Cool. That's how we are introduced to the story of a drunken sister, Baby Jane, who has taken down her very popular sister. Times have changed. Things have flipped. They've done the whole 180. Baby Jane wasn't able to sustain a career as an
No.
adult, as many children, many children and child stars find out. Blanche becomes the movie star.
Yes.
A capital M movie star, very much in the vein of Joan Crawford herself, which is, even the fake movies that they're peddling
Right.
as the actresses, are very indicative of the movies that they both
Blanche
made.
Hudson takes the stage again.
Hudson, and she's so romanticized,
Yes.
and poor Blanche Hudson's career was taken away from her by her sister, by her drunken, loose-moraled sister, who just happens to live next door. Now, as I said, I can't say enough about Bette Davis because she chews it. And anything that even comes near her, she chews up. And from the makeup, which is in its time so shocking, like
Right.
Hollywood movie stars wouldn't let themselves be seen in pancake makeup and smeared lipstick. Like, look at the juxtaposition of Blanche and Joan.
Mhm.
It's like Joan and Jane. I'm gonna say it a lot.
Well, everything about Jane is exactly the way it was in vaudeville. She's wearing the same dress. She's wearing the same hair. She's doing the same moves and the same song and the same makeup. She is unevolved. She is stuck. Whereas Blanche is the evolved one.
Yeah, Blanche was the star. Blanche has paid for the house. Blanche keeps it's Blanche's movies and the revenue from these movies that keeps these sisters afloat.
Yep.
Not Baby Jane. Baby Jane was a flash in the pan. Sadly enough.
Well, I mean, that vaudeville money had to run out sometime.
Had to, yeah. I mean, it wasn't really like you weren't going to be a millionaire off Vaudeville at all, but it happens. But I just love the physicality that she uses. The way she drags her feet and slumps around the house, like the way she walks around the house, kicking doors open, and you can
With a
get
little
the
spin.
character. Yeah,
Yeah.
you get the frustration, the flair, the old showmanship. You get all of that without her really having to talk,
Right.
which is so great. And when she does interact when they do interact with each other, it's gold. Like
Right.
absolute gold.
Well,
Because
the early part of the movie is very little dialogue.
yeah,
It's bells ringing and doors slamming and
yeah.
yeah.
And it puts you in that tense. Puts you in that tense state. I think that we've all been in a house where that is silent, and that tension bundles over when you hear a slamming door or a phone ringing, or someone pacing. It really puts you in a position to be in that state of mind.
Right.
It's really great filmmaking when you think about it, because
yeah.
it's saying us so much without actually using words. It's the old silent movies trick almost, just with a little bit of sound. Yeah, it's so good, and the house is so
the choice to be black and white.
Yep, the black and white. I have seen it in color once, and it just doesn't. No. There's some movies that shouldn't be in color. I'm like, no, thank you.
I felt very strongly, that if color was available and the director chose black and white, you need to respect the director's choice. It's there for a reason.
100%.
You wouldn't colorize Schindler's List.
Unless you're Ted Turner. Well, we're dating ourselves here. Ted Turner wants to colorize the moon. Good time. That's for our older viewers. You'll remember when Ted Turner wanted to colorize everything, and everything came along. Turner Classic Movies was interesting. Interesting, we want to honor old Hollywood, but we want to make it look like new Hollywood. Interesting.
The reason young people don't like old Hollywood is because it's black and white.
Yeah, and that's so sad. I think that's, if you limit yourself, if you have that kind of limitation on your brain, you're missing out on so many great films. So many great films. Like you mentioned Hitchcock. Like, if you're a fan of thrillers and horror and especially psychological horror and tension, and you haven't seen a Hitchcock film just because some of them are black and white,
right?
Like, but what he does with color is amazing as well. Like the way he uses color when it became part of his palette is amazing. But just because something's black and white doesn't mean it doesn't have less value. I mean, God, as you said, Schindler's List is a modern film, or modern-ish film, but they chose to make it in black and white so that the symbolism of the color was very, very important.
Right.
And that's the same at the beginning of the film. As you said, it's not a very verbal film to start with. We get our scene set, and then they just let it loose. Right. The antagonistic relationship between the sisters is delicious. Like, it is so over the top and melodramatic. It's
also very unilateral at that point too.
Yeah.
It's just, we're only seeing Jane's animosity. We're not seeing Blanche's yet.
Exactly. And we get, Jane bad, Blanche good.
Yeah, Blanche good. Black and white.
if we have literal black and white, the black and whiteness. And, Jane has sunken into debauchery and alcoholism and, just all the things that we expect to see. The buzzer is very well used as a literal buzzer. Like, every time it has that timbre to it that you're like, it just makes you go,
right. You're annoyed by the buzzer before you even realize she's confined to bed.
Yes.
The buzzer's driving you.
But we do get signs that this relationship and this way of life that has obviously been happening since they were adults, and now they are, past their prime, is driving her insane. Like, without being, they like to call her, she's being emotional. Like, that's the term, that she's being emotional, but living this, hamster life of buzzing and bringing food and lunch and dinner and always being the bad puppy has done a number on baby Jane, more so.
Well, I also think it's very clear that Jane is mentally ill.
Of course, yeah, but
I
the
mean.
Groundhog Day, of it all, and being
Right.
carer for her sister
Uh-huh.
while needing care herself
Right,
is,
right.
yeah, a very interesting situation.
I
They
mean,
do have a housekeeper.
a
I should say that.
narcissistic personality before we defined narcissistic personality. I mean, throw a blue coat on her, she could be Trump.
So the one person that has been allowed in the house is the housekeeper Elvira, who is really, I guess, her at-home nurse that visits,
Right.
but like she just comes in there, makes sure she has uh, her medication, all that kind
I'm
of thing.
sure she probably does all the hygiene too.
Yeah, it's yeah.
We never see baby Jane tending to her sister's hygiene or
No,
her clothing.
or her own. To be honest, let's
Right,
be honest.
right.
Let's be totally honest. Or her own. So it's and that tension is interesting too. Introducing that third party is another point of tension between the sisters.
Mhm.
That Jane doesn't like Elvira. Blanche depends on Elvira,
Right.
and it's a whole
Elvira
big
doesn't
thing.
like Jane.
Yeah, it's just this very dramatic
Yes.
moment, and the psychological games are afoot. Now there are two classic moments, or three classic moments that I think of when I think of this this movie. We get, of course, in a throwaway line. Oh, Blanche, we've got rats in the cellar.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That happened. There's something that happens later on, but one of my favorite moments is with Joan Crawford in full Joan Crawford style. You couldn't treat me this way if I wasn't in this chair.
But
But in the chair, Blanche.
yeah.
And she's the cackling delight that she has. It is like a disturbed child.
Yes.
She's like, I'm gonna get one over on my sister, and mum and dad can't stop me, and locking her in a room, denying her food, denying her contact with the outside world. Everything that happens at Jane's behest, and that's terrifying to think because she's crazy. Capital C, crazy. So much so that as their relationship degrades and we get hints of the house will have to be sold. There is a plan.
Mm-hmm.
There is a plan going on behind Jane's back that Elvira and Blanche going to escape. And Joan will have to go somewhere where they can take care of her. Take care of her. She gets wind of it, and that's when it gets crazy. That's when she gets served up her din-dins. Iconic. Iconic. The rat on the plate, the scream, the spinning round in the wheelchair, the screaming. It's just so
so
iconic.
Forever.
And echoes, and they show it echoing through the house.
Sustained scream. Yeah.
She's got good support. She's obviously done her vocal training. She's got that vocal training up, and just Jane outside, dancing and skipping away. But perhaps the most, I think this is one of the scenes that you think of when you think of this movie, is that Jane has this epiphany that she's going to bring back her act.
Yes.
The act is coming back. It's very much it kind of has shades of Grey Gardens as well. It's just like I'm going to have a nightclub
Blanche
act.
It's held me back. It's Blanche who's held me back, but I'm doing it.
Yeah. So she advertises in the paper. I love that she has to go down to the newspaper office to to get the newspaper ad and
Pay for it, 48
yep,
cents.
yep. Poor Blanche has tried a contact attempt with the next door neighbors. Like that tension is when she's throwing the paper out the window and she picks it up and you're like, oh girl, you are fucked. Like you are all kinds of fucked. Like you don't get those scenes in movies like that kind of what's gonna happen next these days. I think we have to spell things out so much for people sometimes in modern day cinema that
that kind of subtlety and is gone.
Yeah, just when she picks up the paper and you're like, oh no, what's gonna happen now? Like this poor girl.
Seeing her drive in just as the paper hits the driveway.
Yep. Yeah, it's just all
neighbor,
like it's just I'll get it. She does not like that neighbor. Like, she's shutting her down at every chance she gets. It's like, oh well, poor girl, she has to go. She has to go. But this is where we meet Edwin.
Yes.
What a unique character. Mr. Edwin Flagg, who is a struggling musician that needs a job.
With an overbearing mother.
Yeah, Victor Bueno is a very interesting character and a very interesting character in real life too, if you ever want to look into some of this old Hollywood stuff. He has a very interesting life. This was his first role. So,
really?
yeah, really interesting stuff. So he rocks up to the house and meets Baby Jane, and we get the beautiful, if not unhinged rendition of I've Written a Letter to Daddy. I mean, come on. That is iconic.
It is iconic.
That is iconic. Iconic. And you can just, the way that he acts in that song, you can see everything happening. Bette Davis just isn't, as I said at the beginning, is an actor's actor. You can she has that, sense memory thing going on. You can see the pain, you can see the happiness, you can see the nostalgia, all in a couple of bars of a song that she sings. And it's kind of, I guess, the first real time that we kind of go, oh, poor Jane, a little bit. It's like that's all she's ever known, and that's her, her happy place was being on stage and doing all that. And that part always kind of is a little bit heartbreaking. It's iconic, but it's also like, oh, this poor woman. She's just never been able to get past her childhood and all that kind of thing.
She peaked at 8.
She peaked, yeah. It's hard to do. It's hard to do when you peak at 8. So we have the career going to be relaunched in full, so much so that she's going to get her childhood costumes made into adult versions. That's disturbing. So
meanwhile, she's draining the coffers.
Yeah, of course. Well, this is when we discover all this. This is the important thing. We discover early on that Jane can mimic Blanche's voice, although I just do think that was just a bad ADR.
That was a bad.
But she can mimic the voice of her sister in order to get the alcohol redelivered to the house. But that becomes really important later on, because as things get worse, and they do get slowly worse, Blanche sees her chance to make a big break for it and try to get downstairs. Now, being wheelchair bound, that's a big thing. And
especially in that day and age.
Yeah, she can't do it by herself, but the desperation is there. Her sister is obviously slipping into the psychosis, refusing to feed her, cutting her off from the outside world, etc., etc. Going as far as, what will happen next. It's like this is the big turning point where it's like, oh, okay, shit's gonna get really serious, and we have again that tension of
I think shit got serious at the rat.
yeah, the rat, but still, that was still kind of innocent-ish. It wasn't
Innocent-ish. I don't know.
in a childlike way. In a childlike way, things become very intense and adult
Mm-hmm.
after this phone call. And the phone call was definitely the big turning point because we get that tension, those tension scenes again of Joan in town, getting the costumes, Joan doing this, and getting ever closer to home.
Right.
Closer and closer and closer.
And Joan's getting closer to the phone.
Yeah.
Or
And
not
she's
Joan,
like,
Blanche.
Blanche, it's hard, isn't it? Yeah. Blanche gets closer, and she finally gets to the phone and gets on the phone with the doctor, and then I think it's interesting that we hear the door first,
right,
before we see it, because when she comes into frame, I think my gut dropped down. I was like, oh god, that's right, she hears it. Like I was like, I knew, like I remembered what it's been a long time since I'd seen the movie. But I was like, oh, she hears pretty much the whole thing. And just this is where I give Joan Crawford props because you can see that terror, like when she knows she's been found out, when she knows her sister is there behind her. That terror is palpable. She becomes unable to speak. She like it's all of that, and for someone who is just a movie star, that was the big thing they wanted to hold against her, is that she's a movie star. She's not an actress. This is acting. This is acting.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, this movie, like there are melodramatic moments from her.
That.
Yeah, there are melodramatic moments in the movie, but she acts her ass off in this movie. For someone that is the helplessness and the nostalgia and all of that kind of thing.
And just the physical exhaustion
Yeah.
trying to
to do everything
in an immobile world. You know what I mean?
And
being immobile in a mobile world.
Yeah, it's but this is where it happens. She hangs up the phone and Blanche gets the royal shit kicked out of her. Like that was violent.
That was violent.
And infamously, one of the big things to happen on set is that Bette may have, missed her mark a few times. Missed her mark a few. Yes. So, Bette, she's an actor. She got caught up. Caught up in the drama of it all. But this is where, I think from here we can tell that there's not really going to be an escape for Blanche. Elvira's turned away. And then Jane again brings the doctor back and stops him from coming. And it's just like, okay, this is like the door. This is her closing the door in a big way. But, that doesn't stop Elvira to her...
to credit.
To her credit, but to her own...
ultimate peril.
Her ultimate peril. As Jane leaves the house again, Elvira, who has forgotten her key, enters to, to find out what has happened to Blanche, because, they have a lovely relationship. Like, she genuinely cares for Blanche.
Yes.
And for her to be locked out of it and turned away, she knows that, she knows that Jane's not right. She's always known that Jane's not right. And she knows the plans, so obviously she suspects. But again, bloody neighbor.
I let the maid in.
Yes. The maid. Yes, I just saw her go in a second ago. And poor Elvira. Elvira, she stood her ground for a long time. She was not leaving, to her credit. And then Jane does
peril.
Jane does her meek and mild act, and Elvira sees the state in which Blanche is. She's thoroughly beaten, tied up and gagged, and obviously being
Abused.
abused and malnourished and all that kind of thing. And yeah, Elvira could have helped if it wasn't for the hammer that comes down on the back of her head, technically killing her.
But you don't see that. You only
You
see
don't see it,
Blanche's
but
face.
the other team Blanche's reaction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the again the
acting.
drama of Blanche is the
Yes.
reaction that she had to
And the
convey
things
that.
exactly the things that only she sees, the horror that
Right.
only she sees, and that's what we have
Mhm.
to. But I find those trigger moments really interesting too, because as soon as Jane does something wrong or bad, she runs to Blanche, and it's childlike. Blanche,
Yeah.
Blanche,
Yeah.
what are we gonna do? What need
Yeah.
your help? What are we gonna do? And she's trying. Blanche is really trying to communicate with her at this point because I think she understands what's going on. Like, she sees that, especially now that Elvira's dead,
Mhm.
there's
It's
not
going to be a
really.
life and death
Yeah.
struggle. That's
She
pretty
tries
clear.
to speak to her. She tries to speak to her about the accident, but Jane doesn't want to hear it. And at this point, Edwin also tries to, come calling for his money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this whole scene again. This was another scene that made me go, "Oh, poor Jane," when she's like, "I can't let you in, Edward. I can't let you in. What am I gonna do? Like, what have I done? What am I gonna do?" Like her crying, like a child on the staircase in that big dark house that has eaten their money and taken their dreams. And this is the reality of their lives now. It's so bleak when you look at it. She's sitting there crying in the dark. This
Right.
faded child star who is now, yeah. There's not many ways it can end, really, is there?
No.
She manages to look. I will.
Yes,
Yeah, it narrows down and the tension ratchets up more and more.
Yes, it's not going
It's
to
like
end well.
something's gonna happen. So I must say, we must give it up for Jane's upper body strength. She manages to get Elvira downstairs in a wheelchair in the car and dump the body.
Yes.
I mean, come on, that's a lot.
Especially for someone who's supposed to be in her 60s.
Yeah, and then the phone call when the police reveal that Elvira's cousin has reported her missing is another, panic stations.
Right.
All like, this is, oh my god, we've got to go. She knows that, the jig's up, really.
Right.
If they look around, she's only been a couple of places. And Edwin comes calling, but this time Edwin's drunk and he wants his money. So he manages to get inside the house.
Right.
Oh,
I know, right?
This is where she's looking at the photos and crying and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, this is psychological break territory. It's happened. And in a last ditch effort of strength, Blanche manages to use that table,
right,
and gets some attention upstairs. Edwin comes in and freaks out, like freaks out. Manages to run and leave.
Yep.
But
And
it's interesting.
He tries to flag down the police, and nobody wants any part of him because he's
Exactly
so drunk.
It's just the tragedy of it all, really, isn't it? It's a circumstantial tragedy. Is that these people and their lives have kind of reflected how society will react to them. So even when something goes wrong, no one will help. It's
right.
It's tragedy. It's cinematic tragedy. It's being stuck in your actions, and this is when we go full regression on Jane's point. I think this is the psychological break. From here she is very childlike.
Right.
Like childlike for the rest of the film.
Right, and not in reality.
Yeah,
she's
so
not
she's
in
had
in the
that. She's
moment.
had
Yeah.
that. She goes, "We have to go to the beach. We have to go to the
Yes.
beach where we dance.
Yep.
When we were little, like
Beach
dance
when
on the
Daddy took us
beach."
to the beach. Yes.
Yeah. So again, she manages to get her sister down the stairs in the wheelchair into the car and onto the beach.
I know.
I mean, that is some
No
upper body
wheelchair can
strength.
stand in the
Yes.
car.
Well, the chair's not there. I think she must have
Yeah.
just dragged her because
Right.
when we get to the beach, she's not there.
Mhm.
Like to the wheelchair, she is gone. The wheelchair, she is gone. But we hear, we see. It's meant to be nighttime. I think when they first get there, it's just
Yeah.
bit of difficulty filming at nighttime on a beach in the 60s, but that's okay. That's okay. Next morning, however, they're still there. They are still there. And, the word is out that Elvira's body has been discovered and
Yeah.
that Jane is suspecting kidnapping her sister Blanche.
Right.
The APB's put out on the car and all that kind of thing.
Everybody's
But
talking about it. Oh, it's on the
everyone's
car.
talking about it.
And they're
But this
walking
is
past the body.
everyone's talking about it, and it's right in front of them.
Right.
And this is the turn. This is where things happen. Blanche realizes that help's not coming. Help's not coming. And this is where we get the confession
Mm-hmm.
that she wasn't the one to,
Jane wasn't the bad guy after
yeah,
all.
Jane was not the bad guy. That that Blanche was so upset with how Jane was treating her at the party when they were younger that she was going to run her over and try and kill her. But she managed to paralyze herself in the meantime. So obviously with the accident, there was an accident. She was injured because, Jane left the scene of the crime and was
Mm-hmm.
found in a hotel and all that kind of thing. She was inebriated. She was probably also injured.
Right.
But
And
the
a little
heart,
PTSD.
yeah, of course. But the heartbreaking thing is, all this time we could have been friends.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's so sad.
But could they? But could they? Come on.
You never know. You never know. But yeah,
Jane
she's
was already decompensating and making fun of Blanche at the party. She was acting out.
yeah.
They
And
really, I don't know that they could have been friends.
yeah, well, you just don't know, do you? Like, that's the hard thing. And again, it's a really interesting commentary on how siblings relate as grown adults.
Right.
Do they maintain that relationship that they had as children when their parents are out of the picture, or do
Well, and
you become a fully formed? Does your sibling see you as a fully formed person, or are you
right.
always just her sister?
Well, there's part of you that is always going to be informed by that childhood relationship.
Yeah.
You're going to be an adult and you're going to be annoyed that your sister got the pink dress when you wanted the pink dress, and you're never going to be able to say that out loud because you don't even remember that part of it. But there's going to be that little smidge of resentment that's baked into the soup.
Yeah. So it is interesting that she blamed Jane blamed Blanche, and she was right. At the end
Right.
of the day, for the life of servitude, for the career going away, for all of it, Jane was actually right.
Well, the
It's
career went away first.
yeah, I know, but it was all it's all part and parcel of everything, really, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's one big conglomeration of misery, and she wasn't wrong. Like even though she was ill, she wasn't wrong.
Well, that's the interesting thing about mental illness is they may take it to a different level. They may react badly, but they're usually reacting to something real.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and this is, and you know, the psychological break is obvious because
Right.
she thinks she can fix everything with ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Bless.
Right.
Two cones for 40 cents. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
he
you.
has, the ice cream guy also has my favorite line, and I'm not gonna remember it. But he said something about the cops. What did he
The
say?
cops who were just there on the beach,
Yeah,
like just chilling out, like
right.
just
Reading the
chilling out.
paper.
Yeah,
Part of their
about the
beat.
crime, and then somebody
Yeah,
comes and goes, "Hey, there's a black Plymouth car parked on the." It's like, oh, right, the crime has fallen in our lap.
right. But no,
But
and
it's
I also
interesting.
thought there were some nice, subtle takes on feminism and trying to earn a living as a woman without a man, and
Yeah,
I thought all of that was in there too.
of course it was, and
Yeah.
they like you've got to think in this generation, and even up until modern times, two women living together, two older women living together, that was seen as, oh, poor
Well,
them.
they had
Look
no
at
other.
they
That was
have
the choice.
they're spinsters. They're
Yes.
spinsters. Nobody ever loved them. Their life is tragic. How sad for these movie stars. I'm like, I would
When
pay
we were
people to be.
kids, our next door neighbors were the Cummings sisters, and they
Oh
were
yeah.
two spinsters. They had a beautiful rose garden, but they lived together their whole lives.
There you go. Sometimes you're just stuck. Now, what do you think? What do you think happened at the end? Because
I think
we don't get all we get is Jane reliving her glory days dancing on the beach to people surrounding her, and she doesn't understand
I
what's
think
happening.
Jane is going to be taken away somewhere where she can be taken care of,
Yep.
and
What about Blanche? Do you think Blanche is dead?
I think Blanche is dead.
You think Blanche is dead? Because it's quite a because the official synopsis is the police rush to save her.
I think they they missed that boat.
I know. I think it's a more important and big full stop on the movie that if she dies, because it's a tragedy. The whole thing's a tragedy.
Right.
An avoidable tragedy at that, because of the way, and we talk about it a lot on our show on UCR Live, the way that we look at people with mental illness and the way that society treats and cares for people with mental illness. And this is indicative of that too. And this was
Right.
1962.
Yes.
How much has changed? Like, is the sad commentary. How much has changed? It's like, yeah, but that's where it ends, and it is a roller coaster ride. Now, to say that this movie has made an impact is, not even close to giving it its props. It had a budget of $980,000, which back in the day would have been huge.
Huge.
Huge. It's the only, because box office scores and everything changed. They've got rental scores on Wikipedia, and it's over $9 million at the moment. So it's well and truly a success. It earned Oscar nominations, and it did actually win. The story behind the Oscars is one of its
It's a
own.
really good story.
It is one of its own. Look, it was nominated for 5 Academy Awards and one for Best Costume. Yeah, and
Bette Davis was nominated for her.
Bette Davis was nominated, receiving her 10th. Let's put it.
10th.
Let's 10th and final nomination for Best Actress. And yes, this is where this movie turns into a pop culture phenomenon, and
Yes.
everything that happened during the making of, before, and after is the stuff of legend, and the legendary feud between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, which made the movie something everyone wanted to see.
Right.
They're like it is probably one of the first big cult classic movies In 2003, Baby Jane Hudson was ranked as number 44 on the American Film Institute's list of 50 best American villains of cinema. And in 2021, so long, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry because of its cultural, historical, and aesthetic significance. So, for a B movie, let's put it, because these women were past their prime. They were never supposed to have success again. It created genres. We got this.
It is
older. It's called the Psycho Biddy phenomenon.
Random Guignol.
Yes, so they've well and truly, made history. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about it, there are books and books and books and books and books upon the drama that went before, during, and after this movie. But if you want to watch a really interesting take on it, I can't recommend enough Ryan Murphy's Feud.
Yes.
Bette and Joan. Now, this starred, again, two amazing actresses, Jessica Lange and Susan Sarandon. And it's all about the making of this movie, the before, the during, the after. And you've got to just look at... They got it. When they first announced this, I thought Susan Sarandon was going to play Bette Davis. Joan Crawford. Sorry, Joan Crawford. Because she has that austere thing going on. I thought they would be the opposite. Because I thought Jessica Lange chews so much scenery in American Horror Story.
Right.
She does that. But for her to do the opposite, and for Susan Sarandon to be allowed to be Bette Davis, was brilliant. And have you seen that show, Vera?
I have, and I'm a fan of Feud. I also watched Capote. And
I haven't watched Capote yet. I can't wait.
Good.
It's going to be delicious. Yeah. And I think that really drives home. We should have a Capote night. Yeah. We should have a Capote night. I think it's the TV show really drives the kind of tragedy of it as well. Like, these were just two women who wanted to do the best they could. They were trying to be, respected for their art.
At a time when women of that age were not respected at all.
Oh, well, they still are. Like, let's be honest. Let's be honest. They're still not.
We do have respect for Lange and Sarandon. We do have respect for Cher. We have.
Oh, Cher's questionable.
we have some older women, celebrities, stars who are.
Look at Jamie Lee. I think Jamie Lee Curtis has done big things recently for Michelle Yeoh, and especially for women of color. Like, there's still so much more to go, so far to go. But
so many actresses, their lives are over at 40.
Yeah,
their careers are done. They're just,
finished.
Done.
Old news.
They become
these tragic archetypes of Hollywood cinema.
Right.
But tell me, Vera, because this is the first time, how many broken Baby Jane dolls out of 5 are you going to give this movie?
Broken Baby Jane doll was pretty freaking scary.
Talk to me about it. Tell me how you felt about Baby Jane.
I was really expecting to be more terrified. I was expecting to be more afraid, but it was very much in the Hitchcock genre of psychological scare. I really did enjoy this movie. And like I said, I have flashbulb memories of my father watching it, or my father and my sisters watching it, and me just saying, nope, not for me. But definitely got to give it 4 broken babies.
Right? Yeah, it's a classic for a reason.
Yeah,
and I think the melodrama and the whole the legacy behind it, the legend behind it. Mm-hmm. It's been latched on to by counterculture, and this is a cult movie. This is probably one of the capital C cult movies. What happened to Baby Jane?
I do fear that the cult is dying off.
I know, but these are the
people on
you hadn't seen
not finding this movie.
Yeah, but this is the thing. There's so much product this day and age, you know. Everything's available, everything's out there. They're making new. Like there's been remakes of this movie. I don't
Yeah,
know why you would ever
I don't know why
try.
you would, but
Why would you ever
well,
try?
there were some very period production values, that could have been enhanced, but
That's like remaking The
they're
Wizard of Oz.
right, right, and
Like
it
you don't
never
need it.
succeeded.
It never succeeded. You don't need it. Like
Mhm.
tell stories about like Feud. You know, tell stories that are tangentially related to it, but don't try and mess with the text that
Right.
that is beloved and
Mhm.
iconic and legendary. It's like trying to remake Gone with the Wind or something, and that's problematic in itself. You know, you
Right.
don't.
Well, that
There's
is also,
some things you don't touch, and that's a whole different conversation. But these
there
movies are
also
important.
is something about taking it out of its time.
Yeah,
You know, there that helplessness, that immobility, that those treatments of the disabled and treatment of the mentally ill. I mean,
and women.
in spite of the fact that we haven't seen a lot of improvement, we have seen movement in those fields. You couldn't remake it in a modern lens, I don't think.
No, not that they would understand, and that's why
Right,
I was at the beginning of the show. I was talking about context. It's all
right,
about context,
right.
and you do have to do your homework. And if you're a serious, not even student of film, but someone who appreciates film, you do yourself such a huge disservice by not going back and looking at stuff like this
Mm-hmm.
and understanding how we got to where we are today, how
Mm-hmm.
these amazing actors that we have today, like Meryl Streep, were informed by Bette Davis, Joan Crawford. That like they the
Right.
archetypes. That's how we get to where we are today. It's
Mm-hmm.
history for a reason.
Right.
So
But
I hope, yeah.
but it was
Sorry,
also a B movie for a reason.
yeah,
Because these women, these grand dames, these brilliant actresses, were already washed up. They were
yeah.
in a B movie.
And look, there's always exceptions to the rule, you know. And then we wouldn't have this movie if it wasn't exceptions to the rule. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad that you have seen it. You've braved a movie that has
You didn't give
terrified
us
you.
your baby J.
Oh,
Baby
my it's 5 out of 5. I
Yeah.
love anytime I will come back to this movie every couple of years. It's one that I'm just like, it's kind of like a comfort blanket winter movie. Like you just curl up on the couch and watch it all unfold. You're like, okay, I don't care how many times I've seen it happen.
Mm-hmm.
The ride is worth it all the
Right.
time. I still feel that tension when things like when Blanche is doing the stair dash and
Well,
all that
it
kind of
is so
stuff.
very artfully driven. Like you said, the
The way
tunnel
it's shot,
vision.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
The way it's
sound,
shot, the
the
sound
lack of
design, everything.
dialogue. Yes.
It's a fantastic demonstration of the power of movie making. I think that we don't see anymore. People don't make interestingly shot movies anymore.
Right. They don't.
As a rule, I'm not going to
They
like
don't. I
blanket
don't think
statement it.
that we value that kind of storytelling anymore.
The art, like the art of a camera person, the
Yeah.
art of of being
I
able to
mean,
say something without.
there's some brilliant strides in cameras.
Yeah, but this is how it was done. Like
But this is how it was done, and it was
the
still
sweeping close-ups of the phone and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's very melodramatic and very of its time, but
still
that's the way
very
you have to
artful.
tell story. Yeah, that's the way
Yeah.
you tell story. It goes back to that Hitchcock lifestyle of
Yeah, I
know
couldn't
show
really
don't
review
tell
this movie
sometimes.
without saying Hitchcock.
Yeah,
You
show
know?
don't tell. we're like we
Yeah,
might. Oh
and
my
it's also
god,
got
Vera.
that fabulous Sunset Boulevard quality too.
Yeah,
You
Norma
know?
Desmond, Faded
Yeah.
Hollywood,
Yes.
and I'm always a sucker for old Hollywood, like
Mm-hmm.
ghosty, like
Mm-hmm.
haunted, all that kind. That's my sweet
Now,
spot. So
Sunset
hit it there.
Boulevard, the original, was a movie I watched a lot as a kid. I'm
I'm ready for my close up, Mr.
Mr.
You never know. We might have to. We might have to do it because if people have enjoyed us going back to 1962 and you have a suggestion of something that you would like us to watch, please let us know. We are always looking for professionals / true fans of movies as well, because the whole point of assigned seating is that we usually have someone who loves a movie and someone who's watching the movie for the first time, so we can get the crossover. So this one has been a great example. Star Wars was a great example when we did Star Wars as well. There's been a couple of other ones that we've done, but if you have a suggestion, and it can be anything, obviously uncensored horror is its own beast, but comedy, drama, we'll do anything. We've done sci-fi, we've done classic cult cinema. So if there's something that you would like to do, let us know. And if you're interested in even maybe coming on and playing the game with us and having a chat, let us know. The more the merrier. But thank you for joining us today, Vera. It has been, I can't think of anyone else I would rather have actually talked about this movie with, because I feel like you can appreciate, the Bette Davis of it all. The drama, the psycho biddies, and all the drama that comes with it. So thank you for purchasing your ticket for assigned seating. We've done it live today, which is exciting. It's been good. Thank you for tuning in. I can see the people liking and sending us hearts. That's amazing. And we will see you again really, really soon.
Thursday. We're on live Thursday.
Live. But see you back in the cinema real soon, guys.
Yep. Bye.
Don't forget your din-dins. I've written a letter to Daddy.